Hey guys, what's up? So today there's a new king on the block, literally called the King. It's a brand new plugin and we're going to check it out. Stay tuned. Alright guys, so this new plugin, the King, from this company called August Rose Audio, came out I think about a month ago. They've already released one update for it, so we're on version 1.0.1, and so I just downloaded that. It's a pretty straightforward kind of thing going on here. As you can see, it's obviously modeled after a JCM 800, but it's obviously like a modified JCM 800. It's got a few more bells and whistles, and you know, it's really geared towards kind of high gain applications, metal, thrash, you know, you name it. It's got stuff for about any genre of metal that you can think of. So real quick, what we're going to do is just go through a couple of the modules that they have built into this plugin. It's all pretty standard fare. We have a pedal section, and in the pedal section we have, you know, a few different kind of pre-EQ boost overdrive things going on. We have this thing called the Howler, which to me is very much like a Fortin grind style pedal or something, you know, single knob, very kind of mid-focused kind of boost pedal. And then there's obviously what looks like almost like a Fortin modified TS-808, you know, tube screamer. And then we have something that they call the tweaker, and this is more of like a pre-EQ kind of boost. You can use it as boost, but it's more, you know, to kind of shape some of the frequencies going into the plugin. Additionally, you have a post EQ, and I use a post EQ on most plugins that come with one. It's just a really nice thing to have to kind of shape that sound a little bit more. And they have a pretty simple kind of IR section. Now, it's not quite as fancy as some of the other plugin manufacturers where you have a microphone that you can kind of move around and, you know, get closer or further away, all that stuff. It's all pretty built in, but they have quite an interesting suite of different IRs that you can choose from. They have even some of the Bogren Digital IRs. You know, I think these are some of the free ones that you can get from Bogren Digital. You can also load your own external IRs, but honestly, playing with this, their IRs that they have built in are pretty good and a pretty good like mix of stuff. Now, they don't really tell you what kind of speakers or microphones are necessarily being used, but it doesn't really matter. Use your ears. You can kind of filter through some of these and kind of come up with your own, you know, mix of IRs. And there's also two of them, so you actually have two different IRs that you can mix together, you know, using these knobs over here. Now beyond that, there's a built-in gate. You have your input level, you have your output level. There is a knob here called Assault, which is kind of like an EQ kind of thing they have built in. I read up on it on their website, and I'll link that below. And it kind of tells you what it does. It seems like it kind of modifies the high end of the EQ somewhat and changes the gain structure just a little bit. It's very subtle, but when you crank it all the way up, you definitely hear a little bit more top end saturation and a little bit more, I don't know, I guess aggressiveness. Now, if you haven't picked up on this, it's called the King because it really does mimic Kerry King's modified JCM 800. You know, and it has this tag, the Beast. This is kind of his rig in a sense, but it definitely does more than just Slayer style thrash metal. So let's get into some of the presets and kind of go through them, and then I'll show you a preset that I made using this Ibanez multi-scale, you know, more modern style guitar, and then we'll hear it in a mix and, you know, check it out. So first up for the presets here, I'm looking at one called Black Crownish. I'm assuming this is meant to be something akin to like a Mesa Triple Crown maybe? Even though this is a Marshall platform, but maybe they're trying to go for that kind of more Mesa sound. Yeah, I can kind of hear that. I mean, that's just a pretty solid tone just in general. black metal, so definitely black metal like, you know, that real kind of scooped mid, a lot more highs. Yeah, I mean, that's just super black metal sounding to me. The next one, Sugar. It's got to be kind of more of a modern, genty tone. That's cool. Yeah, you know, very mid-focused, not as much gain, you know, a little bit more definition going on. Death metal. A little more chainsaw action going on there. Pretty cool. I mean, you gotta love that, like, you know, early death sound with just that, like, grinding mid-range. Fit for chugs, gotta be metalcore. Yeah, a little more fizzy on the top end than I like, but it's got that kind of, like, very middle of the road, just like maybe slightly a little bit, you know, not scooped, but the mid-range isn't quite as, you know, present as you'd get in, like, more modern metalcore. This is more like Killswitch Engage style metalcore. Close. Low gain mids. This is like your intro. Captain Crunch. Gotta have like a rock tone in there. A little thin, but not bad. The Howling. Again, this is more of a grindy kind of sound. You know, so far pretty cool. I mean, so they got all these presets. They got some artist presets. Like, you know, one of the ones I liked when I came across to it was this Chewy Rhythm one. Bit darker, almost like muffled. But it's one of those tones where if you're like in a mix and you have, you know, just like some sort of just like open rhythm. And you want to like back it up with something a little bit, you know, textural to kind of give it some like some depth, and you might want to add some like harmonizing parts. I think this tone would be good to like layer in behind it to do something like, you know, have it in there kind of in the background, but it kind of lifts up and kind of blends in with that main rhythm track. I think these kind of darker, kind of more textural tones are super good for that kind of stuff. So here's a tone that I made, you know, messing around with this Ibanez. Try to get something a little bit more kind of modern. I wouldn't say genty or like, you know, proggy, but like, you know, somewhere in like modern metal, metalcore, just what I like. And the big thing about making this tone what it is picking the right IRs, because the IRs that I found on here, there's quite a range. If I were to go back to this one, yeah, not quite what I'm looking for. We'll just kind of sweep through a few of them just to see what they sound like. I'll go ahead and turn off the one on the right. and we'll just listen to the one on the left. I like this one too. This is the one I settled on for this tone. That's the more present one that I picked. And if you go over here, here's the one that I picked for being a little bit more of like the backup. Together, I think they sound pretty good. That one's pretty good too. And then we get into the Bogren ones. Going back to the ones that I liked. I dig it. So before we get into the mix part, there are a couple caveats to this particular plugin that I have to point out. Being that this is so new, they're still working out some bugs, it seems like, because on some instances when I load in the plugin in the DAW or in the standalone, yes, there's a standalone version too, I get some issues, doesn't matter which interface I'm using, between the stereo and the mono, settings on here. Sometimes I'll get like my signal coming through one side and then like a really kind of loud, kind of like overdriven DI track to the left. So there's some things that are still being worked out, kinks being ironed out here, because if you do download this trial, or if you want to go for it, because it is a pretty solid plugin, when it's doing its thing correctly, you might notice that there's some weird things that kind of pop up. So just be aware of that. Granted, like with any product, there's going to be some hiccups. So in the mix, I'm using this particular, preset that I made, and then I'm backing it up with another preset that they have, so I'm doing 4 guitar tracks, 2 per side. And then I'm also using, I believe, the sauce. So I'm using this one as my backup tone. It's not too far off. It's just a little bit more subdued than this mix. So that's like the big present in your face, kind of tone. And then I'm adding in a little bit of this thing called, the sauce. Kind of beef up that low end and give it just a little bit more body. So we'll listen to that mix, and then, The King, August Rose Audio. Check it out.